The next step is I want you to learn to look at the qualities of light on a person. Emma. Because we don't do that. We just go, there's Emma, I can see Emma, there's light. And we don't take it any further than that. But I want you to start looking at where the highlights are, where the shadows are, which way do they fall? Is the light appropriate? Does it work? Does it look good? Does it not look good? And the only way to do it is to have a little practice. If you look at Emma's face right now, can we take your glasses up, please, Em, just for a moment? That's cool, thank you. Come and have a closer look. Emma has got, particularly when, lower your chin again, like you did. Down a bit more. There. Look, you see how it's making Emma's eyes very dark? Look at the shadow going on from Emma's nose. Look at the shadow under her lip. It's really not good. Look at the throat shadow going on here. Does that look great or not great? These are all things that you need to kind of learn to see. I'm going to take a picture of Em in this light. Because the thing is, there's no such thing as bad light. It's just appropriate light. Is this light appropriate for an Emma? That is the question, because cameras see light differently to people, and therefore what happens is I need to change my shutter speed because the light is, there it is. Cameras see light differently to eyes, so our eyes don't notice that. I got Emma blinking, try again, there we go. Let's have a look at that. Look at those shadows, they just do not look good, do they? It is not a good look, no matter which way you think about it. But Em, can you just turn, follow me with your face. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. We want to go towards the sun, there, straight on kind of thing. Could you pop your glasses back on, please? Because what we're going to do is use the same light, but use it more appropriately, because by putting on sunglasses, suddenly that same light kind of works. I'm going to come around this way just a bit. Keep looking over wherever you were, because what's my histogram doing? I want a teeny little bit more exposure. Because Emma is now wearing sunglasses and we got the shadows, it kind of works. It's not great, but you've got to admit, this shot is not a good look, is it? Whereas this one, it kind of works. But we've still got that nasty shadow next to her nose, and that's not great. So Em, can you just turn your face towards the sun a little more, please? There. Did you see those shadows? Have a closer look. Back towards this way a bit, please, Em. Chin down a fraction. Look at this shadow under Em's nose. Look at the shadows on her face. Now do it. What you did, just kind of look up and towards the sun a bit more. Did you see those shadows change? I didn't have my hand in the way, did I, Joe? No, good. Did you see that? A tiny movement of Emma's head, and it's different. Let's just go back. I'm going to take another picture, because now we haven't got quite such strong shadows. And because Emma's wearing sunglasses, suddenly, now look, that has become appropriate, hasn't it? We have now got an appropriate shot, whereas this one is less so, and the one without the glasses just doesn't work at all. But what about changing the light? What about changing the quality? So, Em, can we go over here for a moment, please? Just stand this side of that shadow. Here we go. So come this way just a touch more, I think. That's good. Now look at the light on Emma's face. Look at the light on my face, for that matter. If I stand, move your foot. I'm trying to take the limelight. If you kind of look at the light on our faces, it is really harsh, isn't it? Bright, dark shadows, dark. If we both go back into the shade a little bit, let's just go back into the shade. Now the light has changed. It's still directional, but it's changed. It's much softer. If we look at the light on Emma's face, you see we've got a bright side and a dark side, but we haven't got that hard line. We haven't got those horrible hard shadows. Coincidentally, this light that we're in now, this is called male light. So it looks good on Emma because Em's got really clear skin and all that stuff, but it actually suits me better because it brings out shapes and textures and lines and wrinkles. Men can get away with it because, like, we're good. It shows up all our ruggedness and our manliness, whereas girls don't like to see any lines and wrinkles whatsoever. Do you, girls?
No.
No, exactly. So how could we do that here? Well, how about if we stop the light coming in a direction? How about if we made it all come in one direction? Em, can we go over this way, please? So if we stand kind of here, anywhere here will do, actually. Here we go, and just face straight out that way. Now look. that directional light going from one side to the other is gone. All the light, can you lift your glasses up, please, Em? Sorry. There we go. Now, the light is falling evenly right across Emma's face. There isn't a bright side, there isn't a dark side. It is completely even. I'm going to take a photo because it's a very different light. Now, of course, the light level has dropped considerably because we have come inside. Don't ever confuse not much light with being bad light. Often the places where there isn't much light is where you'll find some of the nicest, best quality light. That looks really cool. I love the light on your face there. I kind of like that light. I think it's really nice. If you want to put your sunnies on again, your glasses, let's see how that looks, because it's quite a bright look. And actually, because of where we are in this sort of lower light subway sort of situation, I think that could work very well. I'm just going to brighten the shot up just a touch. You see, now that looks really awesome, doesn't it? Because we've got that front directional light, it's bright and it's sunny, and the sunglasses kind of work. It's about matching light with subject appropriateness. Let's go try something else, because back up here, we've got this big open archway going on. Now, you know that light is water. If you'd stand in there, please, Em. Imagine water gushing through here. It's like coming in through here at a rate of knots, and it's just roaring down there. But also in here, we've got another little archway going on. So we've got a side river, a little stream, if you like, but it's quite a strong stream, and that's rushing in this way. Right here is two rivers meet. It's where the two come together. And of course, we can use that because there's going to be different highlights on two sides of Emma's face. Would you mind lifting your glasses again, please, Em? Thank you. If we look at Emma's face now, look at the highlights this time. It's changed. Look, we've got lots of highlight. We've got quite a strong highlight here from the big river. We've got slightly softer highlights here from the little stream. We've got, you think I'm talking nonsense, don't you? We've got little highlights on her nose, but we haven't got any of those nasty, harsh shadows. It's quite a nice look. It's an interesting light. I'm going to take a picture. So let's just go back. I'm going to take that picture and we'll see what we've got. I know which one Emma's going to like the best. Now the light has, of course, dropped massively again back here. So I've got to increase my exposure in order to make this work. I quite like the qualities of in this light here, those highlights and shadows. So we flick through just a couple of the shots. Look, each one, the light is so different. You could also use this little stream. Let's use the stream. And if you pop your shoulders back somewhere around here, just flat shoulder against the wall. That's it, and look out there, straight out there. Can you see what's happening now? The little stream is coming whoosh like that and hitting Em right in the face like that. But it's gentle. See how it's wrapping around Emma's face. See how it's trailing off as it goes back across her cheek. So we've got the bright interest part of Emma's face, and then it's coming back this way. You can play around with this stuff forever. I'm going to take that picture because I think that is a pretty cool, oh, that is a cool look. Oh, we like that, Emma. Let's just take that. Right. Here we go. I quite like the moody look that time. I'm going to take that one there. Now that's a lower exposure because I wanted to exaggerate the shadows. I'm going to take the exposure up a bit. I'm just going to brighten the shot slightly and see how that looks. Don't forget that your exposure is also part of your composition. Now I think, all right, let's try it again, and somewhere there. Let's look at those pictures. That's the bright one. I don't like it as much as the dark one. I think that's far more moody and interesting. But it's balancing all these things together with the light. You've got to learn how to look at light on someone's face. You've got to study the light, where the highlights are, where the shadows are. Don't just go, oh, hi, Em, I can see Emma. And we look people in the eye. We look them at their face. We look at their face. What I want you to do is to start looking at where the light and shade is on their face. Really study it. How do you do that? It's a bit weird for the person on the other end of it because you kind of stand there and you look at someone, you look at your friend from about here, but instead of looking them in the eye like I am you now, you're going to start going like this. and studying all around and sort of, you know, comparing what's the shadow doing here compared to the bright here, and what's happening up there on their forehead, and is there a shadow under their nose, or is there a shadow? And they're going to be going, what? What? Why are you looking at me like that? So practice it with someone you know that isn't likely to bite you. But also, get used to doing it when you're out and about. Just kind of glance at someone and get practiced in seeing how the light is falling, what the qualities of the light are. Imagine you're doing some street photography, or maybe you're photographing at a wedding. You want to be careful with the light. You want to look for opportunities. The more you do this, the more you'll be able to see something like you're at a church, you're photographing a wedding, or something like that, your friend's wedding, and you think, oh, the light's really great there. I'm going to wait till they walk over there. It will tell you when to take the picture. Bride and groom are running over here and they're having a lovely time, and you think, I'm not taking it while they're there because the light's rubbish, but the minute they get here it'll be great, and you're just ready and you go click, and then they love you because they say you've taken the best picture of us we've ever seen. Get used to studying the light and shade on someone's face, how it falls on their face. Look at how it falls on their clothes as well, because it makes an immense amount of difference. And don't forget, visualizing it as liquid, as water, can really help. Light means shape and form and texture. What do I mean by that? Shape. It's all to do with highlights and shadows. There's a highlight on this side of my face. There's a shadow on this side of my face. Now we can use that to make pictures an awful lot more interesting. Show you what I mean. You've got some little pieces of wood down here, and if I take a shot, an in-close one, of these little bits of timber from down here, I think you can see that. Right, let's just get in close, focus the camera, exposures, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm just going to take that. Okay, so you can see there are some slightly circular shaped little logs going on there. But if we go from the other end and shoot this way, if I just go here and shoot in the opposite direction, same shot, same exposure, same everything, you can see a massive difference. In this first shot, it's almost like it's a flat blank wall, whereas as soon as you backlight them, there's far more logginess in them. The shadows on this side are making a world of difference because the light is coming from up there in the sky. It's washing back this way. The shadows are coming towards the camera. And we can use this in all sorts of ways to make pictures far more interesting, to bring out these shapes and textures. For example, here we've got some beach huts. If I just sit on my little wall here and line up a shot, I want to use our little logs again. What's my exposure? I think I'm going to brighten it up a little bit. Here we go. And I'm going to make the lens a bit longer this time too, because it kind of emphasizes what I want to show you. Let's just get my focus down here. Get it in focus. Notice, you see, I take a bit of time doing things. Look, now if I shoot that shot, we've got some great shapes and textures, particularly in the little logs, but also in those beach huts, because the shadows are coming this way. Let's go and do this shot from the other end. And let's get comfy down here on some more logs. I would like some more logs behind me. I might be able to. I'm going to move back a bit. Sorry. I'm going to try it from... Will that work from here? There's only one way to find out. Let's see. If I come down here, and I'm going to pop my camera down low onto these logs again. Here we go. Can we see along these logs? Yeah, we can. Look. Much the same sort of a thing. Now if we take this shot from here, it's not quite identical, but I think you get the idea. We've got, I'm going to come out a bit, it's more tricky from here because the logs are further away, so I've had to shorten the focal length. It's still okay, but when we go between them, look at the difference. The textures in this shot compared to this shot. Yes, I know it's a slightly different focal length. The background's a bit blurrier. That's because I made the focal length longer. But that's not what we're looking at. Look at the shadows and the shapes. Look at the shapes in the logs. They're kind of flat, aren't they? Whereas in this shot here, they are just so much more interesting, brighter and more vibrant. Why is that? Let's have a look at the shadows. You see, when we look at this from this angle, the light is hitting into here and here kind of evenly. There's not much difference between the two, and it's doing that all the way down. But when you come and look at it from this side, you come around here and look back the other way, you'll notice that, look, we've got a darker side and a brighter side going on here. It's happening everywhere. There's a little line here and a shadow on this bit of white down here. We've got the shadows going on here. Look, you see, they're much more noticeable. Even when you look up here under the eaves, look, there's a shadow and a highlight. When you backlight, it just looks so much more interesting because the shadow is coming towards. When you stand back here, it is a lot less noticeable when you look at it. Practice backlighting things. Practice using light. The other thing is you can of course practice this just with your eyes. You don't need a camera. You can go out and look at the world around you, study it and think, how does that look now? How does it look somewhere else? You can also use this kind of technique with a person to make them look different, make them stand out from a background. I'll show you that in a minute. Backlighting your subject is a really great way to separate them from their surroundings. Let me show you what I mean by backlighting, because it isn't just having the sun behind them in shot. There's usually a set of circumstances. This is the classical backlighting scenario. Shannon is on top of the hill, looking incredibly heroic in front of her own personal castle. So if I were to frame up a shot with Shannon, let's get zoomed in on her, let's lose all that stuff going on around her, let's focus up. I'm going to completely agree with my light meter, because look what is going on in that shot. It's pretty much all mid-tone, isn't it? The histogram looks happy, she's got some very dark hair, she's wearing dark jeans, so I think we're cool. I'm just going to go with that shot, like that. Yeah, it's a nice shot, Shannon in front of some grey stone, but notice how her jacket is sort of disappearing into that stone. Shannon, could you please, a couple of paces to your left, please? That's good, perfect. I don't know if you can see that in the video camera, but let's have a look in here. Look, what a difference. In fact, Shannon, could you just go to your right again, please? And I'm just going to keep going into the shade. Look, keep going. There. You see the difference. Go back into the sun, please. You see the light change. You just watched it happen. Isn't that awesome? Let's take that shot and do a little comparison and a chat. So here we have Shannon backlit. Look at her left elbow. In fact, look all the way around her. She's got that little fine halo of light, which is separating her from what's going on behind her. It's catching in her hair, it's catching on her hat, yet when she was in the shade, that's completely missing. So there are certain circumstances to look for to make this work. We've got the sun up there in the sky behind the castle, and when you look up here, you see her shadow coming down here in this green grass. And because the background is the dark side of that kind of archway into the old ruined castle, we're using that as the background. Because what would happen if we were to put the bright part of the sky behind Shannon? Let's go over here and have a go. So if I move over here and put the bright part of the sky behind Shannon, I'm just going to bend my knees and get down a little bit lower. You watch. I think you'll find that it doesn't work so well. You can see the rim light around her, but you can't see it around her head because it's disappeared into that bright background. It's nothing like so good. Also, you don't want that great big bright thing going on behind her. You could do this all over the place. Let's move this way a little. Let's see what happens if we change that background a bit, because we're still going to have backlight throughout this sort of arc as we move around. I think that it's pretty cool from this angle. Let's shoot that one. I do like that one. I think, oh dear, doesn't she look like get off my land? And again, you see, we've got this great rim light, which is separating Shannon from the stonework. Now you may notice I didn't change the exposure when we went from in the shade across to the sun. Why not? Well, because the light landing on her face and the stonework is exactly the same, whether she's this way or kind of in that pool of light. All we're doing is using that light to put that rim light around her and separate her out from the background. Look, all those shadows going on down there on the pavement. That's really cool, isn't it? So how about if we use those shadows? What are they caused by? Sun behind Shannon. It's backlight again, isn't it? So let's have a look, see how this shot could look. So Shannon has got lots of space around her. We can use that space. Look at the exposure though. It says we are spot on. Now I'm going to argue with that because I think it's just a bit too dark. But first let's get that composition sorted out. How can we do this? I love that tree shadow too, by the way. I think that's quite nice. So let's use the space. Look at that dark line at the top. We don't want that, do we? So let's just sneak in a little bit of focal length. There we go, we've lost it. But I do love that lonely human kind of figure up there in the corner of the frame. I think that looks really cool. Now what about that exposure? The camera says that's right. I think it's a bit too dark. These are things you do kind of have to look out for a bit when you are working with backlight. We'll let those two shadows disappear out the corner and have a look at that shot. It's an interesting thing. It's a silhouette shot, and of course if that's what you're after, then that is completely great, because it's entirely up to you how you do your exposure. Personally, I think it could look better if we had it a little bit brighter. I quite like the brightness on the pavement. I think that would look good. So let's have a little argument with the light meter. I'm going to open up the aperture, make it a bit brighter. How much? Let's look at the histogram and see what that's doing. It's slowly sneaking to the right. I think that's quite nice. I like that brightness. So let's just make sure my focus is on Shannon. There it is. And I just want to, actually I'm going to sneak in a little more focal length. You see the tree trunk? Bottom right corner? I don't want it. There. This is why you've got to look all the way around the viewfinder, in case you missed something. I like that. I think that's quite a powerful picture, and it's all brought about by backlighting. Backlighting isn't just about creating those rim lights around your subject. You can also use it to create shadows, and when shadows come sort of towards the camera, it gets the whole world more interesting. You see that bright bit above the castle behind me? That's the sun. Now you've probably seen pictures shot looking straight into the sun. And that of course raises a question. How do you do that? How do you go about exposing into the sun? How do you go about including the sun into a picture? How do you make silhouettes? What metering mode is the best? Let's have a little look at shooting into the sun. If we look through my camera, right now you can see the old castle ruin on the hilltop, and you can see Shannon standing on the right, but the sky is completely burnt out. That is because the light in the sky is so bright compared to the shadow area that is on this side. It's really, really hard to get them both, although you will have seen pictures like that, and I will address that in a minute. Let's start reducing the exposure. Let's start making our aperture smaller. Let's start bringing back some sky. Look, we've got hints of blue in the corner. We've got a little bit of detail in Shannon and the stonework still, but as we reduce our exposure, F11's good. I'm going to start speeding up the shutter. It doesn't matter which way we do it. Look, we've got pretty good detail in all of it. Look at the histogram. It's just inside both ends. We should have a bit of detail with Shannon and with the stonework on the castle. Let's just take that shot. Now you'll notice that the light meter said we were just a little tiny bit overexposed by about a stop. It's always this balance between detail in the shadows and detail in the highlights, because this is super, super extreme stuff. We'll come back and talk about this picture again, like I said, at the end. Now if we want to increase that blue and we want to make Shannon and the castle into a silhouette, it's pretty simple, isn't it? We've just got to reduce our light level a bit further. So let's start speeding up the shutter speed. Now look, the light meter says that's right. If you look at the histogram, it's starting to go towards the middle. Why is that? Because there is that big bright bit. Well, look at the blue. That blue is pretty much mid-grey, isn't it? Let's think about metering mode. Do you remember what my favorite metering mode is? I told you right back at the beginning when we were looking at camera controls. I tend to use evaluative or matrix all over, look at everything metering mode, because it averages everything. And even with that bright bit up there in the sky, with the blue all around and the grey of the castle, that will pretty much average out to a mid-grey, even though it looks black in here. If we were to use spot metering on this, spot metering is a nightmare. Look, if I've got the spot on the castle, look, it says we're 2 stops underexposed. If I put it on the sky, just there, it says we're a bit overexposed. If I start going near the sun, obviously it's going to say we're very overexposed. If I put it on Shannon, it's a really tricky thing. But if the spot is on the sky, on the blue, it agrees with the matrix. Look, about -1. If we flick back to the matrix, okay, not quite, but it's still, well, I was only two-thirds of a stop out, but it's not far off. Matrix metering, I find, is really, really good at leveling these things out. You just have to make the choice as to where you want the detail. Do we want a silhouette-y type of a shot like this with lots of blue? And I kind of like it. I think it's quite a cool, interesting sort of a look. I love that bright bit on the edge of the castle. There's still a little hint of detail going on in the castle and in Shannon. It's amazing how in this situation you can get just a bit of both. What about a starburst? Well, how do we make those? Starbursts are caused by using a very, very small aperture. And I believe it's light sneaking in around the little, leaves of the iris inside the lens. I'm not entirely sure of the technical reasons why. All I can tell you is it happens. So I've just flicked to f22. Let's look up here at the sky. The exposure is very dark, so I'm just going to leave the tap on a bit longer. Let's just so I kind of let a bit more light in, slow down the shutter speed. Now look. When I move to the right and we start to get the sun come around the edge of that building, here we go, there it is, look at that starburst. Now starbursts work really, really well when you've got them on the edge of something dark. Look how these tiny movements of my body are just making it bigger and smaller. So if you want a little tiny bit of starburst, you could move to the left and then you don't get the lens flare. Let's just take that because it is quite nice. If you move a bit more to the right, the lens flare comes in and you get a much more powerful starburst. Personally, I don't mind a bit of lens flare in a shot like this. I think it looks quite cool. I think it's quite creative. I don't know which you prefer. But by putting the starburst on the edge of the building, it kind of enhances the starburst because there's something dark behind it. Notice how on the sky side it's quite bright and on the building side it's quite dark. You could of course move it out into the sky itself. Let's do it. So if we start moving to the right, we can move the sun with us. Remember that? We can move the sun in the sky. Let's bring the sun in between Shannon and the castle. So I've had to move over here. If we were to reduce the exposure a little more, I think we should get a stronger starburst there. And it looks pretty cool, but of course Shannon is far more of a silhouette, as is the castle. These are just creative choices for you. Which do you prefer? They all look pretty cool. But what about those shots where you see a picture of someone with a bit of a starburst like this, and you can see quite a lot of detail in both them and the shaded area. How do we do that? Well, generally speaking, it's because some post-production work has been done on it. Do you remember I mentioned RAW files way back at the beginning? A RAW file is a data file, it's not an image file. When you take an image, when you take a picture, your camera makes a RAW file. It then hands it to the camera's onboard processor, which then makes a JPEG, which it gives to you. And unless you tell the camera to save the RAW file, it just deletes it and throws it away. If you keep the RAW file and you then do some work on it in RAW file developing software, you can then tell the computer what you want from your picture, because when I look up there, even though it is close to a silhouette, I can, even looking straight into the sun, I can still see Shannon's face, I can see what clothes she's wearing, I can see her blouse, I can see where her coat's undone, and I can see detail in the stonework. Cameras can't do that. With the raw file, I can lift those shadows, I can take those highlights down just a little bit and make it look closer to my eye. We're not going into raw processing in this masterclass because it's a whole other world. The only reason I'm telling you about this is because I don't want you to try and do a shot like that, hoping it'll look like this, and then thinking you're doing something wrong. It's because the photographer will have done some post-production work on it to make it look the way they want it to, the way they are seeing it. Will shooting into the sun damage your eyes or your camera sensor? You do need to be careful. I have never actually damaged a sensor shooting into the sun. I do know photographers who tell me that they have. All I can say is that in many, many years of doing it, and I do it a lot, I never have. What about your eyes? Well, if you're using a camera such as this mirrorless, which has an electronic viewfinder, so I'm looking at a little tiny TV screen in there. I'm not looking at the sun, I'm looking at a little TV screen, completely safe for my eyes. If, on the other hand, you're using a digital SLR, where you are actually looking through the lens, that's the equivalent of pointing a telescope at the sun. That is not a great idea. So wear good quality sunglasses, not cheap ones. Squint. If you're going to do test shots, don't look through the camera, just sort of generally point and then check your histogram and have a look and see what you want. But minimize the time you look through that lens and really squint, and really minimize it because it can be dangerous for your eyes. That's the health and safety talk. But hey, you're a grown up. You should be able to figure that one out for yourself. Look at all these glorious little pools of light going on all over the place. Light is your friend. Light, composition, focal length, all these things. This is the good stuff. This is the exciting stuff within photography. You can use these pools of light to highlight a subject, to tell the viewer exactly where to look. For example, if I stand here in this little pool of shade, I'm in some great light. It is still a really great shot. But if I just move forward a little bit into this little pool of light, suddenly where I'm 3/4 lit, the light is just striking the edge of my face and my head. It is waking the shot up a bit, and we are emphasizing where you want the viewer to look in the picture. We can use these little pools of light for all sorts of different things. Let's go and see if we can find a couple of shots just here that we could use them for. There's a little pool of light on that tree trunk, and I think we might be able to do something with that. But you have to move fast because light doesn't hang around. Look, if we focus on that. Now that's about what the camera says the exposure should be. But remember, you are the one in control. So I'm going to darken that shot a bit because I want to really emphasize the highlight on the tree trunk. Look, and as we zoom in a little bit and start using the dark area behind that tree, let's get it sharp, and suddenly we've got something that looks like, if I get my camera level, that. You see how we're just picking up the brightness, that little highlight on the bark, and it works really, really well if you can find some little small things like leaves, little pools of light on something a bit more delicate. See if I can find one to show you. Here's a little sprig. Look, sitting in a little pool of light, coming in between the trees. I don't know how long it'll last, but I think by playing with exposure we could do it. Let me see if I can see the shot. Here it is. Now, let me try and brighten my exposure up a little. You've got to be careful with the background too, look. See, as you move around, that background is just a little bit messy, isn't it? Also notice the light meter I'm underexposing. I'm going to move because I think we can get a better background. And by zooming in a touch, moving back a touch, that annoying highlight in the background right behind it, we don't like that. So I'm just going to move there. You see, now we can focus on and hold it there. Now look at my exposure meter. It says I am 3 stops underexposed. This is another great reason why you should argue with your light meter, because that little bit of light catching that little sprig It just looks gorgeous, doesn't it? Over there, in the distance, there is a pool of light about to hit Muddyford Quay. Look, there it is. Let's brighten up my exposure a bit so you can see it. That is going to go across to that harbour entrance. That's where we've done a huge amount of our filming. Now hopefully when that pool of light hits that harbour entrance, and you can see there's a little pool of light in front that's brightened it up a tiny bit more. I want that light to hit the mouth of the harbour. I keep saying it, don't I, because I'm so excited, because I want it to do it, because it will just make that shot pop and wake up. And I don't know that it's going to happen. I think it's going to miss it. You can see that gorgeous pool of light. Now, watch what happens when I reduce exposure to sort of the exposure level of the light. Look how dark that is. If that pool of light were to come and land over there, it would make an awesome shot, and unfortunately it's going to completely miss it. This is one of the frustrating things when you're doing this sort of photography. You've got the most beautiful pool of light and it will go everywhere but the place you want it to. I'm going to hang on and just see if we're lucky and we get another one come along in a minute. Look, right now there's a pool of light and it's highlighting the quay. Let's just take that shot quickly. Notice how the foreground is dark because it's in shade, but actually the quay and the houses and the harbour beyond, they're lit up. So everything surrounding it is much darker. This is one way you can start to highlight things within a landscape using these little pools and shafts of light. A really great way to highlight where you want your viewer to look, where the subject of your picture is to use a light path. They work every bit as well as a spotlight. Right now, it's pretty obvious. I am the subject of this shot. I am standing in a light path. Look at it shining up the mud behind me and the reflection in the puddle in front of me against this gorgeously coloured sky. But you know the really cool thing about a light path? We all of us have our own. Isn't that gorgeous? And because it's your own light path, you can move it wherever you want to go. So if you don't want me to be the subject of your picture, but you do want the boat next to me to be the subject, all you got to do is move your light path, and now we have completely shifted the emphasis of this shot from me onto the boat. Where do you want your viewer to look? And of course, I could wander over here and gate crash the light path we've got on the boat. How cool is that? Et voila! And then Joe could move again and create a new light path so that we'd be somewhere else, so that we can have the boat secondary on the left of the frame, on the right of the frame, and then I could be in a different light path over here, right over here on the left. And here we go, just there. Isn't that cool? Light paths are just one of the most magical and amazing things. All you have to do is look out for them, recognize them, and practice moving around and using them. And so a heartfelt congratulations on completing part 4 of Masterclass in Photography. You've successfully navigated the nuances of composition and the delicate art of using light. Now the trick is to stay inspired and keep up the momentum that you have gained through regular practice. That's why I'm inviting you to part 5, where all the technical and creative skills you've learned in parts 1 to 4 come together in a variety of real-world applications. Part 5 is an immersive experience featuring 15 diverse photo shoots. I'll be there with you every step of the way, explaining the process, the decision making, the camera settings, and more. Consider each of these photo shoots as a unique project, offering you a plethora of photo ideas to practice with and perfect. I encourage you to replicate these projects for even more hands-on experience, or adapt the core concepts to create something entirely of your own. So, are you ready to take this next exciting step with me in part 5 to bring it all together and unleash your photographic potential further still? I promise you, the best is yet to come. You'll find it by searching for my name, Mike Brown, with an E, don't forget the E. And just before I go, if you enjoyed this course and got value from it, please consider leaving me a 5-star review. I mean, either you liked it or you didn't, right? But your feedback certainly helps me, and it also helps others find solutions to the same problems you were struggling with too. So thank you for your support. I look forward to seeing you in part 5.